Welcome to Political. I'm going to wish everyone a Merry Christmas before the radical left ban it. And as always, we're covering the biggest news stories of the day and giving you a conservative take on things. Today, we've got two stories coming up for you. Firstly, we have a poll from Rasmussen that has revealed that more than half of all Americans believe that the supposedly neutral mainstream media intentionally buried the Hunter Biden story in order to aid Joe Biden and get Donald Trump out of office. If they were watching Political, of course, they'll be well informed. And the big story today, though, AOC has called for new leadership in the Democratic Party. This appears to be the latest chapter in the brewing Democrat civil war. Deprived of Donald Trump to unite them, they're now settling down to tear themselves apart as progressives seek to consolidate what they perceive to be big gains, turning the Democrat Party progressive for all eternity. Now, Slow Joe's actually promoted that coalition, but he doesn't have a chance in hell of holding it together. Please do subscribe if you haven't already, like the video and comment and tell us your opinion. Also, remember to check out freedomfirstpress.com, link in the description. It's a great new conservative site, brings you great news. Now, speaking of news, Ian, what news do you have for us on Rasmussen?
Yeah, we have this from Newsmax, the new great Patriot news website / TV channel, cable channel that you can rely upon for to tell you the truth and report on the things that perhaps other news channels might not, shall we say, including this story
not
here.
Sponsored.
Yeah, including this story here. So we've got a Rasmussen poll revealing some kind of interesting details about the Hunter Biden story, and really no surprise, but I want to read you out some of the figures here. So more than half of likely voters believe that news media outlets ignored a report in October that Hunter Biden's laptop computer was found to have emails incriminating him and his father in an illicit foreign business deal and potentially influence peddling to help the elder Biden's presidential campaign. A poll revealed on Tuesday. 52% believe the story was buried as to not damage Joe Biden's presidential aspirations. 32% say it was ignored because it was a partisan hit job, and 17% were not sure. 56% believe it is likely that Biden consulted and perhaps profited from his son's business dealings in Ukraine and China, including 43% who believe it is very likely. And 38% believe it is unlikely, of which 22% think it was very unlikely. And a couple of other interesting things here as well. This was from July, showed that this was before the election or kind of midway of the election campaign. 75% of Republicans and 47% of non-affiliated voters believed the media outlets would aid Biden in the campaign. Only 29% of Democrats believe that the media would aid Biden in the election campaign. And 70% of likely voters have been following the Hunter Biden story closely, 38% very closely. And 76% said news media organizations deliberately ignored the story before the election. 72% said he profited. Yeah, okay, we've just been through that. Yeah, so we obviously reported on this quite a bit, and we were talking about this quite a lot, and we talked about how the media ignored it quite a lot, and we have sort of been pondering, you know, with all of the censorship with big tech, how many people saw this story, how many people knew about this, and it turns out, and it's quite encouraging really, a lot of people still got to hear this, and that's good news.
Yeah, definitely. But what isn't good news is the fact that it's very clear, okay, people got to see the story, but they also kind of have accepted that it is what it is, right? I mean, more than half of all Americans believe the media is actively curating its stories so as to favor a particular candidate, right? That's not good for democracy. When you
Yeah.
have over half of the public believing that the media is a partisan actor in an election, that's crazy. That's mental, and that shouldn't be happening. And can you imagine, why should anyone believe in the system? Why should anyone believe in the freedom of the press as we have it now? Because it's letting people down, and it's very clearly letting people down. And well, people are showing it. I just kind of wanted to touch on this as well. The radical left believe that the media has a right-wing bias, and that reflected itself in the statistic. 30% of Democrats thought the media wouldn't aid Biden. And I don't know, do you think that clouds the left's ability to look at this? I just don't get it. It seems to me they have some cognitive dissonance going on.
Yeah, I think the rhetoric I hear, the narrative I often hear is from Democrats is, oh, the media won't aid Biden because they're throwing in places like, Fox News or Newsmax into that. But the thing is, I don't think conservatives are under any illusion that, okay, not all of Fox News, but like, Hannity and Carlson and Tucker Carlson and people like that obviously are very conservative minded. So naturally they have a bias. They're very overt in their bias, and they make it clear that that's what they believe. Whereas, so there's no doubt that Fox News is, as a whole, I guess, biased towards, Republicans and Trump, maybe a little bit less so now, shall we say, after the election. But pretty much all of the other mainstream media channels are very left-leaning. Everyone knows that. I think Democrats just focus on Fox News and forget that all of the other... I think they genuinely maybe believe as well that places like CNN are actually quite moderate and centrist, which is phenomenal. But I mean, it just goes to show, doesn't it, when we put ourselves in these bubbles, how detached from reality that we get.
No, yeah, and I mean, not even to say, it's not been Fox News deliberately curating away stories to favour or unfavour a certain candidate, right? That's a very egregious stepping over the line. You can have people who have a certain conservative perspective, and Fox News above anyone else criticise Donald Trump after the election, right?
Yeah.
And that's okay. Well, I mean, I disagree with it, but that's okay. But what those left-wing media outlets were doing was deliberately obscuring information and stopping people from getting it. That is massive. It's ludicrous.
Hugely important information towards, that they need to equate when it comes to their vote as well. Maybe even the biggest story leading up to the election. So, yeah, exactly. Massive.
Absolutely. So shall we go on to the next story then? We've got our old friend, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who believes that the Democratic Party needs new leaders. The progressive firebrand said it's time for Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer to go, but warned of a power vacuum that could be filled by nefarious forces who are even more conservative than the caucus's current leaders during a podcast interview that aired last Thursday. I do think we need new leadership in the Democratic Party, she said. I think one of the things that I've struggled with, that I think that a lot of people struggle with, is the internal dynamics of the House has made it such that there are very little options for succession. Pelosi sailed to re-election as Speaker in a virtual caucus vote last month, despite a spate of Democratic losses in the 2020 election. While she did not face any challenges, Pelosi will need to secure a simple majority by the full House of Representatives in order to maintain her gavel. So, with one of the thinnest majorities in decades, Pelosi can only afford to lose a handful of Democratic votes or risk losing the contest. Now, this says this to me, okay? So this is part of the erupting Democrat civil war. And what we're seeing is the Squad and their allies seek to progressify the Democratic Party. These guys don't want any dissent. They don't want any dissent in the Democratic Party. And they see the Democratic Party as an extension of the Republican Party. Okay, so if they can take the opportunity to thrust a knife in the back and get rid of Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, who aren't exactly conservative figures, are they, Ian? They're going to do it, and they're vulnerable because the blue wave never materialized. Donald Trump, well, some people even said that he legitimately won the election and he's been deprived of it. So what do you think of this?
It really reminds me of this pattern that we've seen. I think there's no doubt that there are certain sort of financial hardship. I don't know, maybe financial hardship, but I think this new generation, people our age, are facing new ordeals that perhaps previous generations haven't had to face. We're being, basically told that we need to cut back our economies and things to deal with global warming and force ourselves down these avenues that lead to big job losses that our, ancestors benefited from. Loads and loads of people are wasting countless amounts of money on Mickey Mouse university degrees and this kind of thing. And So what's happening is I feel like we've kind of got a generation of weak people. Not it sounds harsh, but like weak in the sense that they're not really able to deal with the hardships that they face, or at least a lot of them aren't, and they're turning to this revolutionary style of politics where they think there needs to be this giant, revisioning of the economy and the way we do things. And of course they turn to socialism, they turn to Marxism, and that's what you've seen now with young people, students. They've taken over the universities. So they believe that the old Democratic Party, people like Pelosi and Schumer, are, dinosaurs who need to be removed to allow this new progressive wave to take over and bring about the revolution. And of course, they have the support by a lot of radical lefts, as we was called them, or progressive as they were called themselves, who want to enact this, and they see people like AOC as their leaders, right? The people that are going to do it. I do believe that the Democratic Party needs a shake-up, and they do need new leadership, because they do seem very out of touch. But I think they need a leadership that is perhaps more sympathetic to the things that made people appeal. That made Donald Trump appeal to, Rust Belt voters and stuff who had never voted for Republican before in their life. But we said this was going to happen. We said there was going to be this power struggle now. And this is far from, this is just the beginning, and it's going to go on for at least the next 2 years up until the midterms. Maybe if they face catastrophic losses there, they may suddenly realize that they're going down the wrong path. But I think the reality is, because we've seen it all over Europe, this very left-wing side now of mainstream left politics, this very radical left side, is going to take over the party, because they've been taking over parties all across Europe. And I think the same thing's happening in America. And this is exactly what we warned about in the election campaign, saying that if you enable Joe Biden after the way that he has enabled all of these radical people, they're going to take over the party, and we're going to end up in a sort of struggle, in this kind of culture war, essentially, where you've got, well, there's no other way to call them other than Marxists, really. They hate capitalism. They hate America.
Yeah, absolutely. But one reassuring thing, at least, is from the European examples, every time the far left took over a party, or every time the far left did seem to have a bit of momentum behind it. So we're talking Labour in the UK, La France Insoumise in France, and the Greens in Germany. What we've seen is catastrophic electoral losses for the left, because they have a very unpopular ideology outside of Twitter, outside of that, Twitter bubble, and people saying "Yes, Queen" to each other and that sort of thing. So in a way, one could be tempted to look at this and just say, you know what, guys, you carry on, because could you imagine Donald Trump running against AOC next election? Like, what a landslide that would be. That would make Reagan look like a child's play, wouldn't it? So there we go. Left wing, a big rant about the left. That's what we do here. If you enjoy listening to two Brits rant about the radical left in America, then please do click and subscribe and drop us a like and tell us what you think of this too. Do check out our friends at freedomfirstpress.com. We'll leave a link in the description. And please do follow us on social media. And until then, we'll see you next time.